Hello, yes, a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening to you, however you may be listening and wherever you may be listening. This is the Fulham Focus podcast coming to you where we finally had the third time lucky, I believe is the phrase people would like to use. We had our first game against Crystal Palace. We had our first goal against Tottenham. Now we've got our first win against Burnley, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight, as well as previewing our games against Exeter, our game against Brighton, and everything else thrown in between that makes the Fulham Focus podcast what you love to listen to. But enough from me. It's time to introduce our panel for tonight. I don't know who to introduce. I'll just go with whoever's first on my screen. And it's a good evening to Mark. Mark, a good evening to you.
Good evening, Matthew. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Have you recovered from the fantastic result that was Sunday?
Oh, what a day! Yeah, absolutely. Still on cloud nine, but absolutely loving it.
So on cloud nine, exactly. And it's another good evening to my partner from last week. It's a good evening for Matt. I should have asked this before we recorded, but we'll get onto it anyway. Matt Boisclair. I'm going to assume that's right.
Boisclair.
Boisclair. So there's a slight French tinge to it, a bit like Le Marchand, which I quite like. quite like saying that. Right, that's straight into it. There's only really one place to start, and that's our game against Burnley. I don't want to get too much into the ins and outs of what the game was. I think everyone at this stage has seen the goals, seen how they came about. Jean-Michel Seri, his thunderbolt, Mitrovic's two headers, Schürrle getting his rebound in. I think everyone's sort of seen what happened. We don't need to get into that too much. I think the main talking point is going to be, did Slav get his team selection right? Obviously he did because we won. But was he right to make those changes? And the first question is, Marcus Bettinelli. There was a lot of talk going into it. Should he have been brought up? Are we making too much of a fuss about the Fabry goalkeeping situation? Mark, just break this down to it. Do you think that Slav was right to, I don't want to say give in to fan pressure, but there was a lot of, talk and a lot of, I don't want to say anger from the fans, but a lot of fans were clamouring for Marcus Bettinelli to start. Do you think he made the right decision to go with Bettinelli?
Look, I said this on the last podcast. I'm always going to back what Slav thinks, and we've got three fantastic keepers. I think Fabry and Rico are equally as good as Bettinelli, and I think all three of them will feature. I don't think we'll see two of them just drop out of the picture. I think we'll have a lot of rotation, which I kind of like. I don't think Slav gave into pressure of that sign. I think Bettinelli, it's probably a smart choice. He did say he wasn't injured for the first game, and so it was quite clear that he'd been dropped. We're never going to know what actually happened behind the scenes, but I was pleased to see Bettinelli come back in. He obviously responded well, made a couple of good saves. I thought his distribution could have been a little bit better, especially the long passes. A couple of them gave away possession. But overall, it was nice to see him back between the sticks, and it's clear how much he loves the club. So, no complaints there. I think we've got some really good competition for that place. So long may it continue, really.
Yeah, Matt, same question to you. Did you agree with Marcus Bettinelli being given the number one shirt for Sunday's game?
Well, firstly, I think last week on the podcast, I made the statement that we need to forget about Bettinelli because he's not going to be involved this season, and that's exactly what I thought at the time. Something's clearly happened off the field here with the goalkeeping coach who appears to have left the club, and all of a sudden Bettinelli's back in favour. I'm a big fan of Bettinelli. I think he's a great keeper. As Mark said, his distribution wasn't fantastic at times yesterday, but he had a good game. He came and grabbed a couple of crosses, made a couple of neat saves, and I feel more comfortable with him in goal than I did with Fabry. I didn't really have anything against Fabry, but it's clear that some supporters had lost confidence in him. And to echo what Mark said as well, I think we need to trust what Slav says and what Slav thinks. And if he thinks that it's the right decision to play Bettinelli, then that's great. I'm not a great fan of rotating goalkeepers. I think goalkeepers are confidence players. And, if a goalkeeper comes in and plays well, then he should keep his place. And I don't see any reason following yesterday's performance from Bettinelli that he should be dropped. And I think he should keep his place for the next game.
So you said that Bettinelli should keep his place for the next game. Obviously, we've got the Cup game against Exeter coming tomorrow, as we record this tonight when it goes out. So be some of you still on the way to the game. There's obviously going to be some changes, and we'll get on to Exeter in a moment. But do you think for the league campaign, at least, the Bettinelli has got this number one jersey and the number one spot secured down? Is that what you're saying, Matt?
I'm not saying he's got it secured down, but I'm saying that based on his performance yesterday and his performances last season, now he's back in the side. I think it's his place to lose.
Okay, and one of the other more contentious points, I don't want it was somewhat contentious. The debate that we had last week about whether or not we should drop Ryan Sessegnon. Slav again made that decision. He brought in Vieto. I should know his first name, but he hasn't played enough right now that I really should know.
Luciano,
thank you. For some reason I thought it was Lucas, but Luciano, thank you.
Close.
Luciano Vieto playing in Sess's position with Schürrle on the wing, because previous game against Spurs it was Sessegnon and Kamara on the right and left wing respectively. And that's another one of the big calls that Slav, is paid to make. And the question from that is, again, was this the right call to make? Is this going to be a drop in confidence for Sessegnon? And do we think that Sess is now going to be a permanent bench player going forward? Mark, I'll go to you first.
I don't think he'll be a permanent bench player going forward. I think it was just, some rotation, healthy rotation always needed. We're still trying to work out our best 11. I think Sessegnon is, honestly, and this could work to our advantage in the season, himself alongside probably Kearney and Mitrovic are probably the players that a lot of opposition focus on the most in their preparation for matches. I think Sessegnon, obviously, the amount of publicity he gets due to his age and obviously the impact he had last season, I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking at him and trying to, work out exactly his style of play and kind of try and cater for that on defense. So I think starting Vieto yesterday was a bit of a bold move from Slav, but eventually it paid off. You saw how quick he is, how he likes to cut inside, and he goes to the wing quite a lot. I think Sessegnon, for however great he is young, and naturally he doesn't have that that wide breadth of experience that maybe Vieto has had from playing quite a few games in Spain and being at quite a number of clubs before. So I'm not worried that this will be Sessegnon's, drop out of the first team. I think maybe he'll spend a little bit of time on the bench, but it's about fighting for your place. And we've got some really good players going forward. So I'd obviously the person who eventually gets that position earn it. And at the moment, Vieto looks like he's doing everything he can to stay in the team, and good on him for that, to be honest.
Go back to what you said earlier, that Sessegnon, Mitrovic and Kearney are going to be the players the opposition teams focus on going forward. Did you think that maybe it was a little bit mind games from Slav in that case? Burnley would have spent the whole week thinking, right, Ryan Sessegnon's going to be running at us. Burnley's right back. I have no idea. I can't remember who it was. Burnley's right back. Right, you're going to have to deal with this, this, and this. All of a sudden, Vieto's playing. Burnley have to change their game plan. Is that what you're suggesting?
Absolutely. If you look at the side that we played, obviously against Spurs, you mentioned it earlier. We had two completely different wingers, and one of the problems we had against Spurs was that Mitrovic was a little bit isolated at times. We weren't getting the ball into him quick enough, and so Slav probably saw that. And from the very the moment the full-time whistle went in Spurs, maybe it was in his head that I need to change this, and we need to kind of get a bit of movement going. And goals are so important at the start of the season. We all know that you need to get your strikers off the mark and get the confidence flowing throughout the front line. So I think changing it was a smart move. Sean Dyche, he's got a lot on his mind at the moment with his European games. And a lot of Burnley fans will tell you that the European games aren't affecting them in the league. But, the travelling, the change in how you train as well, it all comes into effect. So, honestly, I think Slav was a bit of a, mastermind tactician there. And like I said, long may it continue, to be honest.
Yeah, Matt, what were your thoughts on the whole Sess, Vieto, winger situation?
I was shocked at the start, to be honest. When I was sat in the pub beforehand with my mum, and the message flapped up on my phone to say what the team was, and I was shocked to see that Sess had been dropped. None of us really know much about Vieto. He came on against Crystal Palace, looked good, but didn't really have much time to have much impact on the game. And starting yesterday, I thought he looked more direct than Sessegnon. That was my feeling. Quite a tricky player, very quick, head down, straight towards goal. He set up the second of Mitrovic's goals, I think, with a great ball into the box. And if you're asking whether or not it was the right decision to play him over Sessegnon, then clearly it was, because it worked. Would playing Sessegnon have had an equal impact? We'll never know. Sessegnon is a great player, and he's so young. There'll be plenty of other opportunities for him. And the thing is, at the moment, we don't know what our best side is. We still don't know what our best side is. I still don't believe that Slav knows what the best side is. But he's playing the players that impress him in the week, I guess. And that's what we don't see. We don't see how well they're doing in training during the week. the decision yesterday to play Vieto was the right one. It clearly was, because we won the game.
Absolutely. And just one more in terms of position-wise and players in position that needs to be discussed. Do you think that Jean-Michel Cherie and Tom Kenny can work together as an effective two in the middle of the park? Because we've had some struggles in the first two games, against Crystal Palace and Spurs. And, no disrespect to Burnley, they're very, very good. They're very well organised side, but they're not quite on the level of Spurs. So this was a sort of more easier game and a game that we could play to our style a little bit more. But do you think Seri and Kenny can be an effective two in the middle of the park going forward, Matt?
I definitely do, yeah. I think they're both quality players. It's one of these ones, isn't it, where we debated for years and years in the England side whether or not Gerrard and Lampard could play together in the same side because they were too similar. But we touched upon this last week, and I don't see that Kenny and Seri are that similar, to be honest. Okay, they're creative players, but Seri is very much box to box. He'll be waiting for the ball on the edge of our own penalty area. He'll win the ball on the edge of our own penalty area. Then he'll play a layoff ball to somebody else. Whereas Kenny drives forward, he gets the ball. And you saw yesterday on the counter attack when we got our third goal, we won the ball on the edge of the box. Then Kenny carried it from one end of the field to the other before laying it off to Vieto. And he also did the same in the second half as well. He was racing towards the Hammersmith end. He played it to Fosu Mensah, who crossed it, and Mitrovic just slid in and missed the ball by a matter of inches. I don't think a club in our position can afford to leave out either a player of Kearney's quality or of Seri's quality. And I think that it's a new partnership, isn't it? Look, they've only been playing together for a month or so. Once they learn each other's strengths, then I feel positive and absolutely sure that they'll be able to play together effectively.
Yeah, Mark, same question to you.
Well, I do see the similarities between them. I saw, a lot of people talking about this before. At the moment, you were kind of bringing on Anguissa to kind of fill in that defensive midfielder role, maybe to replace K-Mac or whoever comes on there. I think Anguissa could be quite valuable when we're playing against those top six sides to maybe replace one of Kearney or Seri. I'd probably lean towards him replacing Tom Kearney and then having either Mitro or K-Mac as the captain for the day, only because I think Seri is probably slightly the more creative of the two and can kind of give us that extra spark. But like I said, against a top six side, I feel like at the moment where they are both very, slick players and they are box-to-box players, which, I agree with, I feel like K-Mac, his quality is kind of dropping back and sitting in between those two central defenders. And against a top six side, like we did against Spurs, we did get found out where we only had the one player there. So maybe a more defensive-minded player like Anguissa could come in and play around in that midfield three. Let's not forget, we've got quite good depth now. So I wouldn't want to write off the season early and say, we need to just stick with those two always being on the pitch together. I don't think Tom Kenny would take it badly if he took a game out, just like Sessegnon. I think Slav needs to be brave here and say, no one's bigger than the team. And if we need to make these changes, then we will have to make these changes.
Yeah, and just one quick word on our opponents from Sunday, and that's Burnley. It's something that we and Fulham went through when we went on our Europa League run in 2009, 2010. And it's the question that we addressed last week, and it's a question of tiredness. Did we just get lucky with the fact that Burnley have had to go out to Olympiacos, come back, and then have to travel again on Sunday? You look at our results and our performances in the Europa League when we were there. Yeah, the one that's sticking out to my mind is after we went away to Juventus and lost 3-1, we went to Old Trafford, held them for 45 minutes, and then crumbled in the second half. I think we did the same against Blackburn, where we conceded a last-minute goal. Did the same against Arsenal. We had those times where we held our own for some time and then just managed to crumble after a lack of energy. Do you think that's what sort of gave us the boost on Sunday? The fact, the way the game played out and the fact that we managed to get our fourth goal on the counter. That's, how big of an effect do you think that did play on Sunday, Mark?
Well, I was watching Sky Sports News earlier actually, and I've forgotten who it was now, a European player, I'll put it there. He was kind of saying, it's not just about, if some of the players that featured against us didn't play in Europe, it is also, the difference in schedule. A lot of these Burnley players who have been together for quite a while are used to their training, and they know their bodies are used to, training on a Friday with a game on Saturday. And the kind of European fixture and the travelling, it changes things. And if they don't play, then rightly so. They're on the plane or they're having their meals, but they're not active. They're not always training in the same way they used to. So, however much, like I said, Burnley fans will try and tell you that these European fixtures are nothing to worry about. This is 4 Thursdays on the bounce now that they've played. So 100% is going to take it out of them. Like you said, when we were in the Europa League as well, we did find it, difficult. And it's a case of, whether you've got the legs in you. But at the start of the season, this early on, I can't see it making much of an impact. I don't want to, take away from how well we played as well, because I don't think we were better than them on Sunday because of their legs going. I think it was a technical battle, and I think we won that technical battle. We weren't stretching them far and wide so that they were running everywhere. I feel like we just had, the quick passing and the right tempo to get around them. So I think it'll be an interesting one to see how far Burnley progressed and how that does affect their league campaign. But as far as yesterday was concerned, I think, credit where credit's due. I think we played them off the park, and rightly so.
Matt, same last thing on Burnley, last question to you.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Mark said. I mean, if it had been a tight game until quite late on and then we'd nicked it at the end, then I think you could put it down to tiredness. But you look at the way the game panned out yesterday, and we've been knocking on the door for that 4th goal in the second half for quite some time. Schürrle had blown a few chances. We'd been there or thereabouts, and it seemed like it was going to be just a matter of time before the 4th goal came. But as time went on and it didn't come, then there was always that potential that they could go and nick an equaliser at the other end. I also thought it was interesting, actually. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Dennis Adoy spoke to the club afterwards. It was on the website, and he said that he found Burnley's tactics to be very similar to those employed by Championship sides, i.e. long ball up to the big man. And perhaps that's why Adoy got his chance at the back, because he excelled in the Championship last season at times against sides like that. He's a slight fella, but he's got a big leap on him, and I thought he defended quite well throughout the game. But yeah, I mean, if Dennis Adoy says that it's a side that plays with Championship tactics, then we picked off most of the Championship sides last season, some of which with ease. Yeah, I thought we thoroughly deserved 3 points yesterday. We were the better side.
Indeed, that's it. Unless anyone else has any further talking points they wish to raise about the Burnley game. Mark, you first.
Well, we haven't actually mentioned it, but I think Mitrovic, Schürrle, Vieta, we touched on Vieta earlier. Mitrovic and Schürrle deserve, some incredible plaudits. I think, obviously, Seri was fantastic in the midfield, but those two, I think Schürrle for his determination. In the first 15, 20 minutes, I turned to the people who I was sat with and said, you know what, Schürrle isn't having that great a game. He gave the ball away a couple of times, a couple of wayward passes and a couple of dodgy shots. But if ever you want to see an advert for keeping your head down, try again, then that is it. Because after 90 minutes, he endeared himself to the fans. And what I love the most is the celebration. It was look at me, look what I can do. I'm back in the Premier League and I'm proving to my old employers that, I am good and I am here to stay. And the second thing was how much he appreciated the fans singing his name. And there's nothing more than a fan loves than seeing a player celebrating a goal and, really understanding that connection with the fans. And that, that sold it to me. I am now fully on the Andre Schürrle wagon, and I absolutely love the player.
Excellent point. Matt, last word on Burnley to you.
Yeah, I don't really want to end on a negative, but I feel like we should mention the defending for the goals that we conceded, because it wasn't great. The first goal, Le Marchand's given the ball away on the halfway line and put us under pressure. I think he's been good so far this season, Le Marchand, but that was a disappointment. But the second goal was the one for me. Okay, the replays show that the guy who put the ball in the net was offside. Fair enough. Sometimes you get those decisions, sometimes you don't. But it was from a corner. This is the sort of thing that surely the guys are practicing in the week, and everybody just stood and watched. We lost the first header, and everybody stood there, and the guy just tapped it into the empty net at the post. Surely they're being drilled to defend better than that in the week. Like I say, I don't want to end on a negative, but the fact that we've left this to the end, I feel like we should bring it up.
I think on that as well, you've got to play to the whistle. And the one thing I picked up on was before the ball had even ended up in the back of the net, when it was pretty much a tap-in, Bettinelli's arm was in the air trying to call for offside, and I thought, don't worry about that. Wait until they call it for offside. Play to the whistle. Just try and save it. And his right hand was right in the air trying to call for offside, and his left hand was kind of trying to save the ball at the same time. So I think we need to be a lot more focused on those set pieces. I agree with Matt there.
Yeah, it's basic, isn't it?
It is basic, and basically we need to move on.
Fulham.
Right, and moving on, it's one of my favourite parts of the Fulham Focus podcast. It's one of the new things we have for this season. It's our quiz. So I'm going to put Mark and Matt up against each other as we go through a number of questions related to our game against Brighton and see who has the best knowledge of it. A combination of Fulham knowledge and Brighton knowledge, just to see who has the upper hand on this. We'll start off with this. Question number 1. No win has been more satisfying over Brighton than when we beat the Seagulls 2-1 at the Amex in 2014. A game made memorable by Darren Bent's reaction when he scored against us. But my question is, can either of you name just one, because we want to keep it simple, name one of the Fulham goal scorers that day? Mark, you first.
What year was this in? 2014, did you say?
Yeah.
Then Hugo Rodallega, I'm going to say.
Okay, that's one. That is a correct answer. So we're going to be.
Oh, hey.
Yep. So we're going to be putting Matt. Can you name who the other one was?
I'm going to go McCormack.
No, it was a Lasse Vegan Christensen.
Oh, wow.
It was. I don't know whether or not it's gonna. It's one of those dubious goals panel committed, similar to Harry Kane in the World Cup. It took a heavy deflection, or whether or not he knew anything about it. But point is, Mark gets the point for that one. Question 2, and this is an odd one because this. By the way, Danny writes these questions. I do not know anything about these. This was fresh to me. So if you have any questions, blame him. It's an odd one out round. Darren Freeman, Danny Cullip, Richard Carpenter, and Paul Watson all signed for Brighton, reuniting with Fulham boss Mickey Adams because he took us up in the late 90s. Then Mickey Adams went to Brighton and took a whole bunch of players with him. But my question is, of those 4, 3 of them went from Fulham to Brighton via brief spells at Brentford, but which one didn't? I'll just read the names again. Darren Freeman, Danny Cullip, Richard Carpenter, and Paul Watson all went from Fulham. 3 of them went from Fulham to Brentford to Brighton. 1 of them went a different route. Matt, do you know which one it was?
I think it's Carpenter.
I was going to say Carpenter as well. Damn.
Okay, you've done my job for me. Yep, it was Richard Carpenter. So after 2 questions, it is 2-1 to Mark. Question 3. True or false? Fulham have lost all of their last 5 encounters with Brighton. Mark, true or false? We have lost our last 5 against Brighton.
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it's true. I think I may have seen this in the programme or online.
Okay. Mark says true. Matt says?
Yeah, I'd also say true.
It is true indeed. For some reason, Danny wants to bring this up a lot. Maybe he has a personal vendetta against Darren Brent. But that was the last time we beat them in the league. So that was, we'd lost our last 5. But if you go back, the 6th one was the Darren Brent one. Question number 4. Name the season. Following our relegation from the Premier League, Fulham played Brighton for the first time since which season? So basically, after we dropped down, after we got relegated in 2014, we played Brighton for the first time since when? Matt, I'll go to you first. When was the last time we played Brighton before we got to the Premier League?
It was the Mickey Adams season, so 96, 97.
You seem pretty confident, but are you right? Mark, I'll throw it over to you as well.
I'll go 95, 96.
Well, it is actually, Matt's correct there. The 17th of December, 1996. It was in the Auto Windscreens Trophy, which I think was that day's equivalent of the Checker Trade. Am I right?
I think you're right.
Is it the Checker Trade or is it the Carabao? I've no.
No, Carabao's the League Cup.
No, Carabao's the League Cup. Yeah,
they all went. All of them have gone through ridiculous sponsors through the past. It's an easy mistake to make. Right, we go into this question 5 tied at 3 apiece. So this is going to be a make or break. Question number 5. Everyone loves Bobby Zamora, but the question is, who did he make more appearances for? Brighton or Fulham? Mark, I'll go to you first.
Oh, that's tough. 50-50. I'll go Fulham.
You'll go Fulham. Matt, you'll go?
That makes it easy because I was going to go Brighton.
And victory goes to Matt because it was. 165 appearances for Brighton and 135 for Fulham. Which, when you think, I was of the under impression that Bobby Zamora was there from a lad till like 25. I thought he played more than that, but it was only 30 appearances. That's pretty close to think. But close but no cigar. Matt takes the victory on this week's quiz.
Fulham.
Moving on now, and tonight, as you're listening to it, tomorrow as we're recording it, we do have a Carabao Cup game. It is at home to Exeter City. There's only really so many talking points you can have about this because, A, it's a League Cup, and everybody knows nobody cares about the League Cup, so why are we even talking about it in the first place? I don't know, but Danny insists that we do, and I don't want to make him mad. The only really conversation we can have out of this is, what do we expect the team to be? Because I remember talking on Twitter over the summer when all these signings were coming in, particularly on deadline day. And someone I was chatting with was saying, we now have no excuse for not putting out a semi-competitive side when it comes to cup games. It's not going to be a case of putting out, Marcelo João. I never knew how to pronounce his name, and I don't need to now because he's not in the club anymore. But Marcelo João. He's not going to be getting the game. Stefan Sessegnon isn't going to be getting the game. We don't have to dip into the academy for a goalkeeper. So we're going to put out a semi-competitive side. But what do you expect the team to be? I'm just curious about what everyone's thoughts are going to be. Are we going to be dipping into the academy somewhat? Because as Danny pointed out when we were doing our pre-show prep for this, we don't have extra time to fall back on. So we can't put out a completely inexperienced team and then hope that they'll get tired and take them in extra time. Because if it's a draw after 90 minutes, it goes straight to penalties. And we can't afford that lottery, particularly our luck over the past couple of years with penalties. So, Mark, I'll go to you first. Just give me a quick idea of what you expect the team to be. How many first teamers do you expect there to be, and how many, if any, academy players do you expect to have?
Well, we've got a bit of a history, of playing, fourth tier and third tier teams in this round of the Cup. And the last couple of years, especially against Wickham, which I'm so happy we didn't pull out Wickham for, I don't know how many times we've played them in the last few years. We usually try and give, the youngsters a bit of a run out. But I think this is kind of a different opportunity, really. Slav, we've got a lot of new players. Like we said, deadline day obviously brought in so many. And I think this is going to be important. I think we'll definitely have a few younger heads in there. But I think this is going to be a chance to really test ourselves with our formations, with our new players as well. So I don't think we'll see a huge load of academy players. Definitely a couple in there. I expect maybe Stephen Sessegnon to get a chance. But I honestly think that, we've got sidelined players at the moment. Maybe Alfie Mawson will get a chance to come in. I know he's back in training as well. I think this is going to be a game where we need to test players out. We can't afford to be doing it in the league too much. So I expect Slav to name quite a strong side, if I'm honest. Obviously, we won't have Kearney available. I know he picked up the small injury yesterday. So the midfield, we've got a chance to put other players in. I doubt Seri will be available, but maybe Johansson will get the game time that he's been looking for. Like I said, Sessegnon may come in, maybe even both Sessegnons, who knows? And then maybe Rico in goal or Fabry, for example. But I don't think it will be full of academy heads. I think maybe we'll go with a reasonably strong side with a fair few first team players. Like you said as well, no extra time, so I don't want to risk the lottery of a penalty shootout. So I think we'll be pleasantly surprised, and I think it could be a good result for us, for all of those of us who are making the trip on tomorrow evening.
Okay, Matt, same question to you. What do you expect the team to be?
I think it could be a mix, to be honest. It's difficult to know quite how seriously the club are going to take it this season. As you say, last season we ended up losing to a team from the bottom division, I think Bristol Rovers. And looking at the team we put out against them, it was a mix, but we did have Cabano, Kamara, Ojo, Norwood in the side for that game, and Bettinelli as well. So they were in or around the first team, especially during the run-in, quite a lot of those players, and we still lost that game. So I completely understand why we would try and take it a bit more seriously and not risk being knocked out, especially now we're a Premier League side, because Exeter also in Division 2, or League 2 rather, as it's called now. So I wrote down a team that potentially could play. I don't know if Tim Ream will be fit.
You've stolen my thunder here a bit, because I was going to ask both of you to sort of quickly name quickly name a team, and we could come up with one together. But seeing as you've got one, you fire ahead.
I'm sorry.
Fire ahead and let's see how many disagreements we have.
Sure. Okay. So I've gone for Rico in goal. I've gone.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I've gone for Christie at right back.
Yeah, I can see that. Mark, if you have any objections or any thoughts about that, you feel free to shout out.
I'd stick Stephen Seston in there, but yeah, carry on.
Well, I've put Stephen Seston at left back because he played left back
lovely.
Against Sampdoria.
Continental. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Then we've got Mawson and Ream in the middle if they're both fit and available.
If they're not fit and available though, because Malfi Mawson's coming off a.
I don't think Ream is. Yeah.
Yeah, so if they're not available through injury, so basically players we know are going to be fit. How about we work with that?
Sure. So then I'd probably have Chambers there because he only came on at the end of the game yesterday. And who else have we got as centre back? Trying to wrap my brain.
Le Marchand, Dennis Adori.
Oh, no, I can't. Anybody who played 90 minutes or most of the game on Sunday is a complete no-go as far as I'm concerned.
See, this is where we need Marcelo Diao. We should have held on for him for another 2 weeks.
Maybe. I don't know who the other centre-half will be then, if Mawson's not available. But I believe he is. I think he's been training. I think he'll play some part.
Okay, so Mawson and Chambers.
Sure.
Mawson and Chambers, okay. The defensive midfielder then?
Anguissa. I think he'll play.
Anguissa,
yeah,
okay.
I think Anguissa will get the start.
That's fair enough. The two central midfielders.
I've gone Steph Joe and Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And Matt O'Reilly. No, Matt O'Reilly, I believe, played for the under-23s today.
Did he?
In fact, he did.
I thought he was left out. Oh, was he actually in that squad?
He was. So it'll either be two players who I'm very high on. I reckon if we're going that way and we're going to have an academy player next to Stefan Johansson, I think it will either be Luca Della Torre or Matthias Kate.
Yeah.
It'll be one of them.
Della Torre is more of a forward though, isn't he?
I always had him as a central midfielder. I'm going purely off Football Manager, but I always had him as a central midfielder.
Well, I think I might be wrong, but from what I can remember against Sampdoria, if we were playing 4-3-3, he did play up top. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my memory's playing tricks with me.
Okay, in which case we're still down a central midfielder. Or do you want to put maybe Della Torre? Maybe we're going 4-2-3-1 and have Della Torre as a number 10. Somewhat.
Yeah, we're experimenting with formation, maybe.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, Luca Della Torre goes in at number 10. So we need two wingers now.
Well, Kamara.
I think Kamara is more or less bound to start. I think that's a guarantee. So we need a left winger.
Neeskens, Cabano.
Yeah.
Neeskens, Cabano, okay. And number 9, if you want to play it that way.
But it's going to be the big man, isn't it? Rui Font, the goal machine.
Oh, yeah. I'll be brutally honest. I forgot he was still with us. He has. Because I remember that there's been talk about him going on loan somewhere, and I just because I haven't seen him, I just assumed he'd gone. Okay,
I saw a nice photo of him at the cottage cheering everyone on from the corner. So even though he wasn't in the matchday squad, it was good to see him there.
Okay, and so this is our challenge. We'll come back to this next week, see how many we got right.
Yeah.
The Fulham Focus team, if we were in Slav's position, this is what we do. We'd go Fabry in goal, Cyrus Christie at right back, Callum Chambers and Alfie Mawson at centre back, with Stefan Sessegnon at left back, a midfield 2 of Anguissa and Stefan Johansson, moving from right to left, Abubakar Kamara, Luca Del Torre and Neeskens Cabano as the front 3, with Rui Font as the number 9 up top. In that situation, you'd give Johansson the captaincy as well, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. Or maybe Ream if he was feeling up to it.
Or Ream if he was feeling up to it, right.
Or Mawson.
Oh, careful.
On his first day?
Who knows? Maybe. We'll see.
Right, anyway, moving on, because we've got one more game to preview.
Fulham.
And the game we have left to play is Brighton. Obviously, they had a very good result last week against Man United, followed up with a not so good result, but a very decent performance against Liverpool. And we've seen, we discussed our terrible record against Brighton. It's not going to be the easiest of games for us to go to. And we know our away record in the Premier League is also shocking. So I'm not getting my hopes up too much. I think we can put in a decent performance. But at the same time, I'm not going to be 100% shocked if we don't come away with anything, because I really am a fan of Chris Hughton as a manager. And I think they've got a very similar to Crystal Palace and Burnley. They've got a very good, strong, stable side down there. And I think they can be very hard to break down. Mark, just what are your thoughts going into this game? Where do you think the strengths and weaknesses are of Brighton? Where do you think we can exploit them?
Well, I'm quite positive about this game. I think going into, we've got quite a few games coming up that look quite difficult, especially City on the road. We can't be expecting to get many points there, if any at all. So I've been looking at Brighton away and obviously this Burnley game at home and thinking this is where we need to be going for it. And like you said, our away record in the Premier League hasn't always been great, but this is a completely different team to the last time we were in the Premier League. And I think the way we play, the forward thinking, and we've got the top scorer in the league is in our team at the moment. So I think we can go there, and I think we can give them a really good game. I think watching their match against Manchester United, their 3-2, I thought, considering Manchester United haven't been the most free-flowing of football teams in the last 2 years, I thought Brighton didn't handle that very well when United were on the front foot. I thought their defence was... they struggled at times to deal with late runners and especially crosses from the left-hand side that were being whipped in around that area, and Lukaku was trying to get on the end of them. I thought their midfield and their attack were very well drilled. They were very organised, and so that could provide us with a bit of a problem, especially if our back five still hasn't gelled as much as we would like to see it. I know we had a few lapses of concentration against Burnley. But I think we're going to be in for an exciting game. I think it will be on a knife edge, but I personally think we can go there and I think we can score goals. And I'd like to see that front three that played against Burnley starting exactly the same as how it was, and just to see us go for it and change our away record fortunes. I think that'll be, what all Fulham fans really want, especially going into Man City away following up.
Okay, now you sort of preempted me. I need to give a more detailed script out to you guys so you don't preempt me in future. You have sort of the question that we put out on the Fulham Focus Twitter feed after the Burnley game was: do we think Luciano Vietto is going to cement his place and keep Sessegnon out of the side for a sustained period of time, starting with the Brighton game? You've obviously given your view. You think that's going to, or at least you want that to happen, because you want to stick with the same front three at least that played against Burnley. Matt, do you share the same views? I.e., strengths and weaknesses, and also in regards to team selection.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be silly to change a winning team to begin with. I also had a look at some of the stats from Brighton's opening games, and although they beat Manchester United 3-2, they had 6 shots, 3 of which were on target, and of course the 3 that were on target ended up in the back of the net, but they only had 33% possession against United at their own ground. Against Liverpool at the weekend, they only had 30% possession. So I think we're probably going to win the possession battle, because I think we've, player for player, we're better. We're a better side. We'll keep the ball well. So the game hinges on how well we defend and how ruthless we are in front of goals. I also noticed they give away quite a lot of fouls, Brighton. And if they're giving away fouls in key areas, then if we can get good balls into the box, then I think Mitro will be on the end of them. They're missing a couple of key players at the back, Brighton. They're missing their captain, and they're also missing Lewis Dunk, who went off against United injured. So that's a couple of key players for them. So if we can get in amongst them in that penalty area where we're ruthless in front of goal, then we've got a really good chance of winning the game. Although Brighton's home form has been excellent. They've only lost 1 game in their last 6 at the Amex, including last season, obviously, as well. And 2 of those games were wins against Manchester United, and 1 was a win against Arsenal. And I think they drew against Spurs in amongst all that lot as well. So they're very difficult to beat on their own patch. Their away form's terrible. It's on a par to how bad our away form used to be when we were an established Premier League side. But at their own ground, they're difficult to beat. But I think we've got a really good chance of beating them, as long as we can keep our head at the back and more importantly, our concentration at the back. That's key. We'll score. I think we'll definitely score a couple of goals. Will we concede any? That's a big question.
Now, you mentioned when we were going through our Exeter team preview, you wanted to put Alfie Mawson and Tim Ream into that side. Now, that's you giving the assumption they're going to be fit. If that's the case, and you mentioned that we need to be strong at the back, do we bring Alfie Mawson in, or do we keep it as much of an unchanged side as we can? Or do you think, we spent all this money on Alfie Mawson, we need to rush him in?
No, I don't think there's any rush to bring him in. I think bring him in when he's fit. We'll have to see how he gets on against Exeter tomorrow night. Perhaps a couple of substitute appearances to integrate him into the Premier League, get him back into the pace of things. But the last thing we want to do is put a player who's had a knee operation right in at the deep end when we don't really need to. We've got some fit defenders at the moment. All right, some of their performances haven't been fantastic so far. Some of them have been better than others. But let's not drop him in at the deep end. Let's only put him in when we're confident that he's fit enough and his fitness levels are high enough to cope.
Okay, Mark, it's time to put the pressure on you. I'm going to need an official, although it's unofficial because we're not keeping score of it anymore. We were, but we decided not to in the end. I'm going to need an official score prediction from you, and ideally, if you can, the scorers as well.
Okay, I'm going to go for 2-0 Fulham, and I'm going to go with Vieto and Schürrle.
Vieto and Schürrle. Matt, same to you.
I think we'll concede. I do think we'll concede. I'm going to go 2-1, and I think Mitro will get them both.
Okay, Mitro staying on fire then.
Indeed.
Someone had to keep that cliche at some point. It may as well have been me. Just before we do sign off and wrap up this edition of the Fulham Focus podcast, one of the things we are trying this year is we have our own fantasy league. Be sure to check out the Twitter page for all the details on that. But we like to have our fantasy Premier League tip of the week. So if you're in our fantasy football league, then feel free to join in, and also feel free to follow these picks, or feel free not to, depending on how you see it. Mark, what is your fantasy football tip of the week?
Okay, so I've been keeping an eye on this player for a little while now. He's only owned by 1.6% of managers, and it's actually Mamadou Sakho, obviously the Crystal Palace defender, who we know very well. He only costs 5 million, which is a decent price for a defender, and he's been playing very well recently. They've got Southampton up at home next time, and from watching a few of Crystal Palace's games, I think he's good in the air. He picked up all 3 bonus points in their last game, and I think they may keep a clean sheet. So although it's risky picking a defender as your kind of wild card, I certainly will be having Sakho in my team next week. So follow that advice to your own peril. After I only managed a meager 35 points this week, Mitro kind of saved me, but follow advice at your own peril.
Okay, and Matt, what's your tip for this week?
Again, last week I tipped to put Salah in because Liverpool were playing Brighton and he did score, but it's hardly groundbreaking advice. And I've got something similar this week because Newcastle were at Man City this weekend. They had 19% possession at home against Chelsea yesterday, which is terrible when you're at home, really. So going to Man City, who have a lot of possession traditionally, they potentially could absolutely thrash Newcastle. So I'd say put Sergio Aguero in and make him your captain.
Even though, Rafa's going to employ the same style of play as he did against Chelsea, and it's not going to be a 5-0 or a 6-0, you know that, because Rafa's just going to shut up shop. Well,
Chelsea and Man City are quite far apart in terms of how well they play and how they play. I can see Newcastle getting their backsides handed to them at the weekend. I really can.
Okay, that's fine. My fantasy tip, I'm gonna keep banging on this until basically someone tells me to stop. I'm gonna pick another Welshman. I'm gonna go with Aaron Ramsey, who I think I picked last week as well. Arsenal going away to Cardiff City. I think Cardiff, not exactly the greatest team in the Premier League. That's no secret. And I think that Arsenal's game plan is going to play Cardiff's game plan is going to play very well into Arsenal's hand. Aaron Ramsey, I think, will get at least 2 assists, probably from corners. Just probably from corners. That's it. Thank you very much for listening to this week's edition of the Fulham Focus podcast. Just a few things to remind you on. You can follow us on Twitter at Fulham_Focus. And please keep an eye out on Wednesday on the website as we induct a true legend into our Hall of Heroes with an article released in honour of the anniversary of his passing. Now, all that's left for us to do is to thank you for joining us and to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Matt.
Goodbye.
It's a goodbye from Mark.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Goodbye, and come on, you Whites.
Go on, you Whites.
Come on, you Whites.
Fulham.